First off, sorry for. I think I was on another link or something, so that's what I was on the other phone. So I think it just got me a bit confused. Actually. Um. Uh. Thank you for coming on the call. Thank you, everybody. Personally, super excited to be here today. Let me share my screen. We'll be talking basically of on the design, the design process, design thinking, basically. Um, just to go back, my name is Splendour Austin. I'm the founder of Big Site, a design and workflow development agency that works with founders to help bring their ideas to life in 14 days. Share my screen. Okay, okay, thank you. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep, we can see that.
Also, amazing. So as I said earlier, we'll be talking about the design thinking, understanding the design process and what make a successful product. So first off, what is design? So design basically is the process of creating the look or structure of something. But personally, I define design as an art, as the process of creating an experience that resonates with people, one that is both creative and functional. Well, this is not only limited to just products. It could be furniture, it could be electronics, etc. But for the context of this session, we'll be talking basically on product. Now, what is the design process? The design process is a series of steps you take to solve a problem or create something cool. So it's just like you'd have the steps to creating a pizza. If you follow the proper steps, you end up with something that tastes like a pizza. But if you take the wrong steps, you end up with something that doesn't taste like pizza. It's probably something worse. The design process includes the empathize phase, includes the define phase, the ideate phase, design phase, which is also called the design of the prototype phase. Then we also have the testing phase, we have the launch, and the last phase, which is the iteration phase, also called the phase where you make improvement. This phase is most times missed by founders, and this is where you could completely change the entire fate of your product by asking relevant questions as to what went right, what went well, and how the people interact with the product and what you could do better. We start with the empathize phase. Now the empathize phase is simply where you learn and understand the people you are designing for. It's where you figure out what users think, what users feel, what they do, and how and their everyday problems and how they interact with this problem. Now, for this session, we would be taking up a case study, which is which is students who often forget to do their homework and miss deadlines, test dates, or group project tasks. And project The problem statement would be students often forget to do their homework, they miss deadlines, set dates of group projects are they need a simple and fun way to stay organized and remember school tasks without feeling overwhelmed. Now, for this, on a real basically, for this to be asking questions like uh how did you how did you how do you struggle with how do you struggle in school? How do you currently track homework? How do you use apps to stay organized? Why do you use them? And have you ever missed deadlines? And what went wrong for you to miss those deadlines? This question, in of itself, is for the research. And for research, we do have two different research methods. We have qualitative and quantitative. We have qualitative and quantitative research. For the qualitative deals with feelings and opinions. This includes having interviews, one-on-one interviews with people, doing observations, or having focus groups. Then quantitative research includes numbers, deals with numbers and facts. This includes doing surveys, having quizzes, or using analytics. These are for feedback. That the questions that I made mention, the questions I made mention of earlier, which were what do you struggle with in school? How do you currently track homework? Do you use any apps to stay organized? Why and why not? Have you ever missed an assignment and what caused it? Now, we'll have feedback like I use sticky notes, I forget most times unless my friend reminds me, and group projects are the worst. People forget their parts and no one knows who is doing what. From the feedback we have gotten from the society, we then move on to creating a persona. Now, a persona is a fictional character that represents the real user. How this helps you to empathize more with the people you are designing for. Instead of a scenario where you say, I'm designing for let's say a million people, and you're trying to think of every single person within that million that you'd be designing for. This kind of gives you perspective and helps you really empathize with this one particular uh, character and say, what does this person like? What does this person find frustrating? What does this person, what are this person's goals? And how would this person interact with my product once that is out there? Like I said, we look at products like LinkedIn, we look at products like WhatsApp, Instagram, they have different feels to it. This is because this is intentionally done because let's say it is like Instagram where you have more videos and pictures for people who really interact with stories and creative content. Well, let's say things like Twitter, people who like voicing their opinions, and then we have something like LinkedIn where it's more of professional. So there are different personas to this freedom. In as much as their user base is large, they are targeting a specific kind of user. That's the essence of using a persona. The defined phase is where you figure out exactly what the problem is. Now, if we go back to the question and the feedback we got, and the problem we initially stated out to solve, from the feedback, we figured out that Not only not only did they find it hard to keep track on the assignments they had, they also found it frustrating when others on the group assignment forgot their own part. Now, once we really define what that problem is, we now go into the ideation phase. The ideation phase is where you think wildly without judgment or overthinking. You come up with as many ideas as possible as to how you can solve this particular problem. And for this, I came up with, let's say, a talking cartoon dog that reminds Karim of tasks, a checklist with emojis and progress bars, a reminder app that gives points, finishing homework, a shared board group project, a Blackboard feature to turn class notes into reminders, and a colorful to-do list that can be rearranged. I mean, the main process, the main idea, as I said earlier on, is not to limit yourself or think, oh, this one still seems weird, or this one doesn't seem to, or feel like it's going to work. Just think as wild as you can. Come with as many ideas as possible. But for this, I choose a reminder app that gives points for finishing homework and a shared board for group projects. Now, moving on to the design phase, which is also the prototype phase, which for us designers, this is where the fun part is. You get to interact with every single piece that makes up the period, from color, text, fonts, icons, and every other thing to animation that create the full process to create the prototype. Now, this is the prototype I created to solve to help solve Karim's problem of missing missing assignments, forgetting assignments. If you remember that as I went, let's get to it actually. Anyway, for the prototype, first off, if you look at the top left, top left corner, we have where the username and where the point would show. So he gets anytime he completes an assignment, he gets the point. He gets several amounts of points, which to make the product more exciting, I also created shopping a shopping space where let's say he does his assignment, gets the point, and uses those points to shop. So this kind of motivate him to do the assignment consistently. So for the flow, first off, you click on add assignment, then Karim would select which assignment is going to be doing. So this is going to be math and geometry. Then you click on next. Is this personal or group assignment? For personal, go to next. Then you're going to select the date you're supposed to submit the assignment. That's the deadline. Then select the 30th, click on next, then select the time. So the idea behind the time was, let's say, he, the age group we are looking towards is, let's say, like within teenagers, 13 to some 18 years old, 18, 19 years old, which probably they'll be restricted within their phone. So let's say 6:30, and once it clicks finish, now we see feedback. Also, you earn 30 appointment, sorry, assignment points on completing this assignment. So it now goes straight up to the home page. Now, after creating this, you could test it with users. And that's where we move to to the testing phase. The testing phase is where you test it out with real people to see what works and what doesn't. Now, if we are going back to the design phase, yeah, we have two different types of prototypes. We have lo-fi and we have the high fidelity. So depending on your timeline, depending on the timeline or your deadline to get the product to market, you either want to go for the high fidelity, you either want to go for the high fidelity or start with the lo-fi. The lo-fi basically is a kind of like a rough sketch of what the initial product would be like. It uses lines and shapes just to kind of show you where everything will be placed out, not really giving full detail, using color or font or whatsoever to give the full detail of the product. So the lo-fi is what you see on the left hand side, and the high fidelity is what you see on the right. The high fidelity is the it has its is right. It's the one that is made up of colors, fonts. It's the real thing. It's what the developers would see, be able to get your product, to develop your product, and what the users would interact with. Now, in the testing phase, in the testing phase, you we noticed that not only did they need to keep track of this assignment, but also they needed a way to communicate while taking on this group task, this group project. So I added a chat feature that would help them to communicate even if they're outside school. So just give it a couple seconds for it to load to show you what the chat feature looks like. Okay. Okay. So this is where the chat will be. I think it's a little bit glitchy there. Um, well, anyways, we did create a chat feature so it will help the students communicate better while the project is ongoing. Let's say after school hours, they still have access to each other to communicate while the project is ongoing. Then one of the reasons testing is important is when you test a product, you and get it in the hands of real people. They tell you what is actually important. Let's say if this were to be live, something live, and we tested it with these guys with the age group we're targeting. And let's say they tried the app and they said uh, this color we're interacting with, you don't like this particular color, it seems awkward to this age group, or whatever feedback you get is usually very, very valuable in the testing phase. And using this feedback helps you iterate on that product and make the product better. Now, common mistakes in testing. One of the common mistakes in testing while testing a product is talking too much. So while testing a product, you most people tend to over explain the flow of the, let's say you give your user the product to try and you're kind of telling the person, oh, press this place, or trying to interrupt the person while the person is going through that flow or process. Instead of doing that, it's more advisable to step forward and observe while the person interacts with the product. That way, it's easier for you to understand while reading the person's body language or while listening to what the person is saying while interacting with the product. Secondly, is asking leading questions like, did you like how easy it was to use the product? It's a leading question. This leads your user to say either yes or no. And this is not the kind of reply you're looking to get to make progress on your product. Now, you'd instead of asking leading questions, you ask questions like open-ended questions like, what was confusing? How did that make you? How did that make you feel? How did you find the? How did you find? How did you find the flow? How did you find the interaction with the application and all things that would make the user more open to giving you as much feedback as you need to make the product better. One of the third mistake would be testing with only one person. Let's say you build your app and you just pick it to, let's say, your spouse or just your one best friend to test it. And since your friend says, oh, it's nice, it's okay, you based off of that feedback, you now take the product to market. That feedback is misleading and will not give you enough that will help you make improvement on. The first one is not taking me. Now, when you're interviewing a, when you're testing your product and you're going through it and you're asking questions, it's more advisable to either let's say, record the session or be take notes while the person is going through the product, while you're asking these questions and they're giving you feedback, you are writing and taking notes. And the last one would be forgetting the goal. Now, if you know your goal is to reach, let's say, in the case of this app we created, is to reach students within the age of 13 to 19. And you build this, then take it to your coworker or friend, which is within the age of 30 or thereabouts, and he tests the app, they test the app and give you a feedback. That feedback is not aligned with your initial goal and the people you are trying to reach. This feedback is not going to help you hit the goal, your target, and will not make your product better. And once you've tested the product, you've gotten feedback, you've iterated on this feedback, you now move to launching the product. This is where you share your product with the world, people get to interact with the product more, and you even get even more feedback from a wider range of audience. Now, the common mistakes in the design process would be keeping the empathize. The empathize phase is seen to be one of the building blocks for the whole design process. Because first off, if you don't really understand the people or the person you are designing for, you can sway off in the course of designing the product. Let's say in the design phase with all the excitement, you'd you say, oh, this features seem too exciting to use without considering, oh, what will this particular user feel? You swear off of your initial goal when you skip the empathize phase. Now, secondly, would be solving the wrong problem. Now, still goes back to keeping the empathize phase. Now, when you solve the wrong problem, it's always usually because you haven't done research, enough research to know what people actually want. Because you could come up with this super um, innovative idea that nobody or is very, very unique to the market. Yes, but then again, you go in, ask questions with people, you ask people who would potentially use your product, and then give you the feedback on, oh, this is important, but would prefer using this instead. Or let's say, let's say in the case of uh, let's use BlackBerry and the iPhone. Yeah, people then would be, yeah, they're excited to have as much keypads on their keyboard, but going into the market, going into the market, and you see an opportunity to solve a particular problem, and you do your research, and you gain feedback. You produce what the iPhone did. Yeah. That sadly is not testing it with real users. Not testing users, still going back to testing with friends or friends that are not within your persona or the people you're creating the product for. Number four would be ignoring feedback. So let's say you do research, you go out, gain feedback from users, and once you get this feedback, you're now like, oh, these people don't really know what they're saying, they don't know what they want, or you hold back on implementing those feedback for some reason, that would impact your product too as well. Then number five would be not iterating or improving. Still going back to BlackBerry versus the iPhone, right? The transition within the powerhouse of mobile devices was because the BlackBerry did not iterate on their product. Yes, you could come up with the amazing first launch, first MVP. People interact with things to get great feedback, but market changes, market consistently changes, and with every market change and season, you have to be adapting and improving on this product to keep making it better. The Instagram that first launched is not the Instagram we see today. The Facebook that first launched is not the same Facebook we see today. Same as Twitter, same as LinkedIn. There's companies that is rated on their product and they keep iterating based off of user feedback and how they feel on what they feel would be very, very good for users and what would make their persona, how they make their persona find their product easy to use. Now, in conclusion, design isn't just about creating something cool, but making sure it's functional, easy for people, for real people to use, and solve the problem. Good design starts with empathy. We don't design for ourselves, we design for others. Every step matters. If you skip one step, your final product may not work as well. Mistakes in the design process is part of it. The goal is not to have a perfect product, it's to keep improving on your product and keep making it better. Testing and feedback are super important. They help you make your idea even better as time goes on. Lastly, the design process is like solving a mystery. You talk to people, figure out what their problem is, you iterate and keep making it better. So for that, any questions, uh, things you don't understand about the design process? I think some people actually came a bit late, so things you came in you didn't understand. Let's discuss. Let's talk about. Yeah, Peter. Uh, Petra. Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. Oh,
Yeah.
you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Um, really great presentation, thank you. I was going to ask about the testing phase, if there is a certain amount of time, or a time limit you should kind of put on yourself in the testing phase so that you don't end up kind of going in this continuous loop of obviously going to your users, they're changing this, changing that. Like, how do you know when to, okay, you know what, we've, this is for example before launch. um how many times would you then test, or how, to what extent would you test before you're like, okay, it's ready to launch, kind of a thing? Obviously, like you said, it's iterative, but just pre-launch, for example.
I'd say I'd say it depends on the institution or the person building the product. Let's say if you give yourself a 6 month timeline, you definitely don't want to be testing for 3 months. Yeah. So if you let's say you have the 6 month timeline, you know, okay, here's our roadmap. We have we do the empathize phase within X period, we do the testing phase within X period, and within this amount of period, we should have X amount of users. We should have X amount of users. It's all dependent on the person and the timeline you're looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Also, yeah, behind business, really important shit.
Hi. Yes, so what I'm really interested to learn is what has been the most effective ways that different product managers have communicated with you, and also what have been the most frustrating ways?
Um, the most, I think it will all depend on personal interaction, right? Product managers, it's just like interacting with your fellow coworkers. Every person has different personalities. So I think I think it's always best if the product manager has a little bit understanding on the design process itself. It helps you at least come to a level ground where you say, okay, um, if we're giving X deadline, yeah, you'd know if the product manager understands how design works, you know something that is feasible enough to interact with us. Say, okay, we can do this within a month. Let's do this
Yeah.
within a month. Instead of picking something that could be done in a month and say, let's do it within a week. So it's always best if the the product manager understands the design process itself and has a little bit of understanding of design. And the frustrating part is if they don't understand the design process
Yeah.
and how design works. But if they don't understand that process, it makes it really frustrating and you'd have to be going back and forth and sometimes you miss deadlines, which is also bad for business as a whole.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful.
Also, yeah, Petra.
Sorry, just another question. How, in the design process of and development at the same time, like this is like back end or like actual product development, And I know sometimes there's a little bit of a like what the UI UX designer will design versus like what is actually possible technically, right? Depending on whatever language that you're using. How much would you say like to, because it can be difficult when you like present, like the designer presents you with something and you love it or you really like it, and then technically speaking maybe that's like a bit more, let me not say difficult to actualize maybe for the developer, but how much do you kind of like say, okay, this is the design and this is how I want it to look, and yeah, and maybe the developer's writing back saying, oh, you know, this is a bit more difficult, harder, I'm not exactly sure how you want it. How do you kind of get them to get them on board with the, okay, this is the final design and this is what I want it to look like, if that makes sense? Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, it does, it does. Right. I'd say early on in my career, I did have that issue. Yeah, because yeah, I'm coming from an art background. Yeah, so you really want everything to look really amazing, the animations and all. Yeah, but when you take this to a developer and the developer tells you this is not feasible and it's not workable, right? You have to go back and iterate or something. But moving on, I've been using Webflow so that Webflow helps me see what a developer would see, right?
Right.
So in as much as we're trying to make it look really amazing, feel really amazing, we also have to be thinking, oh, is this possible? So let's say in a scenario where I'm designing a website and also being the one developing the website on Webflow, I'm also wearing the hat of both the designer and the developer. So being in that kind of scenario has helped me, yeah, understand what the developers would be going through. Yeah, so if I create something really, let's say the animations are really crazy, I know the amount of work I'm going to put in to create that thing to work. Right? So
Yeah.
it's not get the same working with a developer. So it's always really amazing when, let's say, the product manager has an idea of what the designer and developer is doing. Then the designer has an idea of what the developer is doing. That way, everybody works in sync. Nobody's creating something that is too awkward to develop, or nobody is giving a deadline that can.
Okay. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
That makes also. I think it's a couple of people coming deeply, so you may have some questions to ask more here.
Splendour, could you give us a bit more information on your background, please? I'm interested to know.
Okay. Basically, I started off as a I graduated as a fine art student coming from the arts background. Then I've been a designer for over 4 years. Then I founded my own agency, which is Big Site, where we help founders design and develop workflows like in open.
Okay,
That's
cool. That's
been,
interesting.
yeah.
And what would you say is your favorite project that you've worked on?
My favorite project is hard to put a pin on it, right? Because there's a whole lot that hmm, I'd say projects I do get to work on workflow are really more exciting to work on, right? Those are really more exciting because not only that you you I went through the process of designing every detail, but bringing it to life is my own process. So I'll just say projects that are being done on workflow are just very much exciting to me.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. I feel like it's always really rewarding when you have something tangible at the end of your efforts.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Like to get to see people interact with something that you spent a whole lot of time
Yeah,
creating, right? Really exciting.
yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Also, really cool.
Just quickly, you know how you were just mentioning about it's really helpful when the designers have an idea of what the developers are doing and the product managers have an idea of every kind of cog in the machine has an idea of what the other party is doing. Have you ever found anything at one particular workplace that has really helped to kind of implement that collaborative spirit of understanding the good things from each part? Or do you feel like it's just kind of a respect that you have for each other anyway?
I'd say it's the respect, right? It's the respect because if you go into a space where everybody kind of respects what each and every person is doing, and you interact with your coworkers properly. Let's say if you were creating something, you could hit up your developer like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Uh, is this feasible? Would this work? Before we send it off
Yeah,
to the head of the team or something. So it's usually best to always have that interactive workspace.
that makes sense about timing as well and making sure it's possible before everyone starts working
Yeah,
on it. It makes so
yeah,
much sense. Thank you.
yeah. Any other questions? Jay, Miriam, any questions? Gloria, Vicky, see you guys. Any questions?
It was very interesting to sort of listen to everything you went through today. I don't have any questions at the moment. I think you sort of covered anything I could have been wondering about some of the other questions I've been asked as well. But it's been a really good session.
Thank you. So I'm told that most of your stuff in businesses. So I mean, if in the business you have any questions regards to design and the whole process, okay, help us.
I've added you on LinkedIn,
Also, trying to get the call.
so if anything comes up, I'll definitely drop you a message.
I will definitely do the same.
Yeah, so my LinkedIn page is there, my X, my Instagram, and also my email. So if you got any questions, definitely email me, send me message on LinkedIn, Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really helpful.
Awesome. So it seems no other person has questions. Or is there Jay, do you have a question? Gloria, do you have a question?
No, thank you.
Okay. If you think no one else has questions, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone that turned up, everyone that came out. Really excited for me to share a little bit of my knowledge with you guys. And a huge thank you to Barbara who gave me the opportunity to do this and share this with you guys. And I mean, anytime, anything you need, feel free to reach out and yeah, talk soon.
Great. Thank you. Take care.
So much.
Amazing.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
Bye.
for
Bye.
Have a nice day. Hey, Barbara. Hello.